Hi, this is Gary with MACMOST.com. Let me show you 7 different ways that you can copy and paste on your iPhone. MACMOST is brought to you thanks to a great group of more than 2,000 supporters. Go to MACMOST.com/Patreon. There you could read more about it, join us, and get exclusive content and course discounts. Now, when the iPhone first came out, you couldn't actually copy and paste on it. But that was soon remedied, and now there are many different ways that you can copy and paste on your iPhone. Let's start off with the most basic way. Let's say you're in an app with some text. I'm going to use Notes here, but you could be working in Mail or Pages or just about any app where you're creating text. You can double tap on a word to select it. So I'm going to double tap on the word quick here. And you can see right away I get a menu at the top that has cut, copy, and paste. But I don't want just that word. I want more than that. So I'm going to drag the end of that selection over and get exactly the text I want. When I release, the menu is still there. So cut would delete the text from here and put it in the clipboard so I can paste it later. Copy will just make a copy of what's there. It'll leave the current text alone. And then paste will actually delete the text and take whatever's in the clipboard and put it there. We're going to use copy here. And then I'm going to go to another part of this document, but I could be going to a completely different app as well. And I'm going to tap right where the text cursor is blinking and then use paste. And you can see how it pastes a new copy of that text. Likewise, I could switch to a completely different app like Pages, and I could paste there and it will paste that text in. So this is a good way to make a copy of text in the same document, but also a good way to copy text from one document to another. Now here's a handy tip if you're going to use that method. You can also select text using the Trackpad method. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to tap on the space bar in the keyboard here. I'm going to hold down with my finger, so I'm not releasing. And after a second, the keys all go blank. Now I'm in trackpad mode. I continue to hold my finger on the screen and I move it around and it's working like a trackpad would on a Mac. I can go and place the cursor where I want it to go and I can release and the text cursor would be in that location. But I could also do a quick tap with a second finger anywhere on the keyboard. Once I do that, now if I drag, it's going to select text rather than just move the cursor. Now I can release and I made that selection. Now the interesting thing here is that it doesn't give you the menu. You can still bring it up by just tapping on the selection and now you have cut, copy, and paste right there and you can continue as before. But another method you could use to copy can be done while that menu is there or if it's not there, as is the case right now. You can use 3 fingers on the screen of your iPhone. What you want to do is make sure your fingers are not too closely together. You want to have them 3 fingers spaced apart and you want to pinch in with those 3 fingers. Do it in the middle of the screen. You don't have to do it right where the text is selected. And then once you do that, you could see the word copy appear at the top of the screen. Then you could tap somewhere else, like here, and you could use the regular way of pasting, just another tap and then paste. But you could also use the opposite gesture, 3 fingers together in the middle of the screen and then out. And they have to be separated like that. So a quick little unpinch, and you could see it says paste to the top and it pasted the text there. I find these gestures really hard to pull off. Even I can only do it maybe 80% of the time, which isn't good enough. Matter of fact, 99% of the time wouldn't be good enough. I prefer to use the menu there, but if you really like gestures and you're good at them and you find this works for you, it's another option. Now there's another way to do it using a gesture. So I'm going to select text here and it doesn't matter whether you see the menu there or not. You can take 3 fingers and you want to tap with the 3 fingers in the middle of the screen. Now when you do this, make sure all 3 fingers are connecting with the screen at the same time. If one gets there first, it'll work just like a regular tap. So let's do it. 3 fingers in the middle of the screen and then you get this special menu at the top. It shows undo, cut, copy, paste, and redo. So this is a really useful little editing menu there. It includes copy, cut, and paste. So I can now tap the copy part there and then notice I can move elsewhere, do the same 3-finger tap like that, and now I don't get cut and copy because nothing's selected, but I can use paste. And notice how it remains there for me to do multiple things. So I can paste again. So that can be kind of handy. I also get the undo and redo. It'll remain there until I do something else, like tap elsewhere in the text. Now there's another way to copy, but it doesn't work with selections. It works with the entire document. So for instance, if I were to select this text here, I could tap the Share button or Action button there at the top. Sometimes in some apps it's at the bottom. And then you get a copy option there. But note the context. At the top here it shows a note icon. This is for the whole note. It doesn't show the text that's selected. So if I actually use copy here, I get the whole note, not these two words. If I were to then switch to another app and paste, you can see how it pastes the entire document in there, not just the words that were selected. Now this works better in other situations. For instance, here I am in the Photos app, and if I go to a specific photo and I want to copy and paste that into a document, I can use the Share or Actions button there at the bottom, and you could see copy says copy photo. It's being clear what it's doing, and you can see the context right here. I'll copy the photo. Now I'll switch to another app and I will paste, and it pastes the photo in place. So it's useful in that case. Now another way to copy and paste is to tap and hold an object. So for instance, if you're in Photos here, I can tap and hold this photo, and then I get copy right there, and I can use that to copy and then paste using any method in another app. This works in other cases as well. For instance, in the Messages app, you can tap and hold a message, and you can see you get copy there. And then if you paste that into a document, you can see it pastes the text. Now in many apps you can also select objects, and when you do, you can copy those. So for instance, I'm going to use the Select button here at the top of the Photos app when I'm viewing my library. When I use that, I can select multiple images like this. I'll select these 3. Now I can copy them using either the Share and Actions button here. You can see I can use that, and there's Copy Photos. And it shows me the context here is 3 photos. But other apps have a 3 dots button like this one here, and that sometimes also includes a copy function here. So I can copy those 3 images that were selected. Now I can paste, and you can see it's going to paste all 3 images. It's not always the case though that you have a select button. Sometimes you have to select things a different way. So for instance, I can tap on one object here in Pages and hold, and then with the second finger tap another object. And now I've got 2 objects selected. And when I release, you can see I've got Cut, Copy, and Paste, and I could copy both of these objects. And I want to show you one last way to copy and paste that doesn't even involve the clipboard. You can drag and drop objects and text between apps. So I'm going to select some text here, and with that text selected, I'm going to tap and drag the selection. When I do, you can see how it takes out that text, and it's now this object I'm moving around. I still have my finger down on the screen. Now, if I release it here, what it's going to do is cut from the one location and paste it in the other. You can see how it's done that. But if I instead go to a different app, so I'm going to use another finger to bring up the application switcher, switch to Pages, and I'm going to drop it here. You can see how it's pasted it there. But if I go back to Notes, you can see it's left it there. It's smart enough to know if you're going between apps that you probably just want to make a copy and paste it and not cut it and paste it. And you can do the same thing with objects as well. For instance, in the Photos app here, I can tap and drag this one photo, and I can switch apps and then go to this one here and then drop it there. And I basically dragged it from one app to the other. It didn't cut it out of the Photos app, of course. It made a copy, and now I'll put it here in Notes. So don't ever rule out dragging and dropping as a good alternative to the traditional copy or cut and paste. And also keep in mind that third-party apps may do things in a non-standard way. So you may find some third-party app has different cut, copy, and paste buttons or functionality available. If there's an app you use all the time, you may want to explore all of the different toolbar buttons and elements inside that app to see what other ways there may be to copy and paste. And also try out the methods I showed you to see which ones will work and which ones may not in that third-party app. Hope you found this useful. Thanks for watching. If you liked this video, click the thumbs up button below to let me know. I publish new tutorials each weekday. Hit the subscribe button so you don't miss out.